What's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a turkey call out of a turkey wing. Pretty cool, actually. So this wing is from my last tag from my 2022 spring turkey harvest. And what we're going to actually do is we're going to take the bones from the inside of it and we're going to craft a call out of it. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. So first things first, you have to get the bones out of the wing. So that's what we're going to work on right now. The wing is broken up into 3 sections: top, middle, and bottom. We don't need the bottom section. What we need is a top and the middle section. The top part is where it connects. First things first, you have to disconnect it from the bird. Otherwise, you're going to struggle. So we're going to work on that. There's a lot of skin and flesh in here, so I got to cut that out. Get rid of all of that. As you can see, this joint right here is connected. So what we want to do is we want to take the knife and we want to slice the tendons where the 2 bones meet in that joint. And once we cut that, we'll be able to pop that right off. Always remember your knife safety. Be careful you don't cut yourself when you're doing this. Last thing I want anyone to do is get hurt. Now this middle section of the wing, this is like your typical chicken wing. You know, the one with the little 2 bones with the meat in the middle. That's exactly what this is. Just bigger because it's a turkey. But there's still a joint right here. We got to cut the tendons so that way we can remove this part of the wing from this part of the bone. We're going to do it the same way as the first one. There. This is what we're going to need. Now I'm going to work on getting some of the meat off of there, separating the bones, and getting ready for the next step of the process. Now that I have the bones separated, my goal is to cut as much of the fat and ligaments and meat off of the bones before I put them in and boil them. I just want to clean them up as much as possible. That way I can, that way it makes it easier further along in the process. Alright, so here are 3 bones. What I have to do now is I have to go upstairs, put them in a pot of boiling water, and cook the rest of the meat and the tendons off it. That way I can peel them down and make these bones super clean. Once they're all clean, I'm going to end up putting them together, something like this. Then we'll have our call. Alright, now that we got our turkey bones cleaned, we're going to put them in a pot of water. That way we can boil them. Before we boil them, we want to put some borax salt in there. And some Dawn dish soap. Remember, you don't want to boil the bones for too long. If you boil them too long, they'll get brittle and break. So the longer they boil, the more fragile they get. Once you've boiled your turkey bones, you want to clean off the remaining pieces of ligament that are still attached to them. Shouldn't take too long, but you want to make sure they're nice and clean. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hacksaw. If you have a Dremel tool, that'll work really well as well. But you have to be super careful. This is a very, very thin bone, and you don't want to break it. So don't put too much pressure when you're cutting it. But what you want to do is you want to cut the joints off of the bones. So remember, just nice and easy. Now you'll notice that there's a more rounded end and a more flat end. The flat end is actually going to be the piece you put in your mouth. The round end is going to be what connects into the next piece. So there's still bone marrow that is inside of this. Nice little trick you can do is just put your mouth on the flat end. You can actually blow it right out. Now, you have this nice hollow bone. Now it should be nice and hollow. Should be able to see right through it. You're still going to want to rinse them out in water though. Now the big bone. So for this one, what you want to do is on the smaller end, you want to cut it right about here where it's in the most narrow spot. See how it flares out? You don't want to get any of that in there. So you want to cut down this narrow part. I would play a little bit further towards the narrow side just to be safe, because you don't want any of that top part in there. So I'm going to cut it right about here. All right, this is going to be the noisemaker. So we're going to take it and we're going to cut it right in the middle at this widest point. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it that nice trumpeting sound that comes out, and that's where we're going to get our noise from. So we're going to cut that right now. All right, so you're going to see this end isn't really hollow. That's okay, we're going to fix that. But these are our 3 pieces, and it's going to end up something like this. So you can use your knife and you can kind of tweak it out and clean it in there. However, like I said, it's very fragile and you don't want to break it. So I have this attachment and we'll drill it out like this. I'm going to use this file just because it's a little bit longer to help me get all the way into this bone here. Alright, so as you can see, it's all hollow now. There's a lot of fibers that were cutting across it, but that's alright. This is exactly what we're looking for. You can clean up the inside more if you want, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's all the way hollow. I'm going to take this piece of sandpaper. I'm just going to go around the edges a little bit. When you do cut it with a saw, it leaves some bone fragments out, and I don't want any of those to pull, tear, break when the bone dries out more. It is easier to hollow out the bones and do that last step when the bones are wet and fresh out of the water. If you let them dry, it just makes them more fragile. So while the bones are still wet, fresh out of the water, that's the best time to do those last couple steps. All right, so now that you've done all that, it's time to put it together. Now, pieces don't fit together perfectly, right? They don't slide right in. I can do it the other way. However, if I do it like that, then the call's not going to work. So they got to go from biggest to smallest. So what you want to do is you want to look for the shape of the bone and just kind of twist around, figure out which way is going to go where. And then what you have to do is you have to take your knife and you have to kind of whittle it down. Sand the inside of the bone, whittle down the outside of the smaller one, and just make it so it fits. Be very careful not to force it, because if you force it, you can crack and break the bones, then your call's ruined. It is a delicate process, so really make sure you take your time while you're doing it. So once you get it all to fit together, it's going to look something like this. This is exactly what you're looking for. So what I like to do is I like to make a small little mark. It's going to get covered up anyway, so don't worry about how it looks as far as on the joints. But I do like to make a mark because you're going to have to take it apart to glue it together. So you can see I just put small little marks on either side of the bone right there. So that way when I can pull it apart, I can put it right back together the same exact way. You're going to need to pull it apart. That way you can epoxy it shut and it becomes one solid unit piece. Alright, so now we mix some epoxy together and we want to assemble the call. So we're going to take the pieces apart very carefully and apply some epoxy to the outside of this. Be very careful you don't get it on the inside because you don't want it to obstruct your call. Then you insert the piece into the bone. Apply some epoxy around it. Oops, that's all right. There. And And now I will do the same to this piece. There. Now we will let that dry. And our caul will be done for the most part. So this part you don't necessarily have to do. It's more of like a decorative piece, but it also does bind it together a little bit better at the joints. You take some thread, just standard sewing thread, spool of it, and you start at the joint, and you just start wrapping it. Basically, you're gonna wrap it so that way it smooths out the edges from where the two pieces of bone meet. This part can take a little while, so just take your time and make sure it's exactly how you want it, because once you put it into that epoxy and you wrap it on there, it's not coming out. Alright, I have the black done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a small banner of green right over the middle part of it, and that will be it. Well, there we have it. It is all wrapped up, all epoxied. Only thing left to do now is let it dry, and then I'll have a nice new turkey caul. Well, there you have it. It's your turkey wing bone Yelp caul. Now, when you use this, it's not like a typical grunt tube or basically any other caul that you use, a duck caul or anything, where you blow into it. You actually suck air in when you use this caul. You put your lips together and kind of... Now, you can use it in the corner of your mouth or in the middle, whatever you prefer. I'd work with it a little bit because it is a tricky caul. I like to put it in the middle, and just like that. Can't wait to use it next season. Hope this helped. Make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and keep your eye out for new content that comes out.